Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to the 7th edition of 100 Smart Cities in India. We've been doing this Smart City event, a physical event. Last 2 years, we've been doing a virtual event. But still, the enthusiasm and various interest on the Smart Cities still progressing. I was very surprised when my team told me yesterday that we have 700 plus registration for the Smart City event. So this is what the interest of the people in listening from the experts, what is happening in smart cities, what is the next. Having said that, let me welcome our chief guest today, Hrs Kunal Kumar IAS, Joint Secretary of the Joint Secretary Mission Director, Smart City Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. Sir, welcome to the event. Let me also welcome Shri Sanjeev Kumar, the Chairman and Managing Director, GCAL. Sir, welcome. Dr. Rajkumar Upadhyay, the Executive Director of CDOT. Sir, welcome. Shri George Kurula, who is the CMD of BESIL. George Kurula, sir, welcome to the Smart City event. I welcome our moderator of the event, Sumit Chaudhary, who is the Managing Director of Gaya Smart Cities, who has been consultant to various smart cities. Still, he is doing a lot of consultancy in it, and he will also share, he will moderate the session. And I welcome Sri TV Ramchandran sir. Without his efforts, such event is impossible. Who is our guide, who is my godfather, who's been guiding me, which are the event to be done, how to do, which are the people to be invited. Sir, a big thank you to you and welcome to the event. Without wasting much of a time, I would like to invite TV Ramchandran sir, who is the president of Broadband India Forum, who doesn't need an introduction, just for an newcomers in the industry. I just wanted to say a few words about TV sir. TV sir is an industry veteran who has been the CEO of Sterling Cellular, who launched the first cellular in this country. A man behind establishing Cellular Operator Association of India. Various recipients award from Voice and Data Lifetime Contribution Award of Mobile Telephony in India. He is also an honorary fellow of IET, London, UK and IET. Apart from that, he is in various committees of government committees. Sir, over to you. TV sir.
Thank you, Shashi, for your very kind words of introduction. Good morning, everybody, especially to our respected chief guest, Shri Kunal Kumar, Joint Secretary and Mission Director of Smart Cities Mission in Mohua. All our super eminent speakers, Dr. Upadhyay, Mr. Sanjeev Kumar, and everybody, Mr. Sumit, all of them, all the esteemed attendees, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be before you all today and make some introductory remarks. The National Smart Cities Mission is a revolutionary project indeed, initiated by the Government of India to transform the country's landscape. Urban areas are expected to house, as you all are aware, about 40% of India's population and contribute 75% of India's GDP by 2030. And in the Union Budget 21, Smart Cities Mission, which was allocated funds worth 6,450 crores in a revision to the earlier estimate of 3,400 crores, clearly underlines the growing importance of this great project. As just before this we were talking, and Shri Kunal Kumar rightly mentioned, it's a journey. Smart cities is not an end. It's not a terminating project. It's an ongoing project. We have to get smart, smarter, smartest. That's the journey we are on. And this cannot be overemphasized, better emphasized than through the fact that the Smart Cities Mission has played a very significant role in implementing various measures during the pandemic to ensure the ease of living of citizens. The mission helped ensure that smart cities remain at the forefront of leveraging technology to efficiently manage the COVID-19 crisis. We have to be very thankful for that. We don't realize it. It's there impacting us in day-to-day life, the various aspects of smart city. In June 20, MoHUA issued an advisory directing all SPVs to prioritize projects that help build resilience to the COVID response. And very, very appropriately, 70 smart cities established immediately integrated command control centers, ICCCs, to monitor the environment, the traffic, the waterlogging, law and order, etc., which facilitate good decision making. And these centers are collaborating with the concerned government departments dealing with COVID response and helping to manage the crisis. Services offered, as you're all aware, include dedicated lines for hospital bed requests, ICU availability, ambulance services, etc. Many are the key initiatives that have been undertaken by smart cities to counter the impact of COVID. And just a few examples I'll give now, for reasons of time constraint. Integrated dashboards to monitor the COVID hotspots and facilitate decision-making on key metrics. It was done in many cities like Pune, Nagpur, Amritsar, Surat, Bengaluru. The web-based and mobile applications for contact tracing were leveraged in smart cities like Pune, Nagpur, Agra, Chennai to trace affected people. Smart cities such as Kanpur, Gwalior, Agra, Indore leveraged ICCCs for two-way interaction with dedicated telemedicine lines for consultation and patient therapy. And to effectively manage COVID-induced lockdowns and monitor social distances in public spaces more efficiently, smart cities leveraged smart communication networks and drones. There has been progress on a number of fronts under the Smart Cities mission, and the completed projects are providing multiple social and economic benefits, especially to the marginalized sections of population. This is very important because you and I may not represent the average population. We have to look at the marginalized population, and these have helped us on various fronts through the Smart Cities mission. The public-private partnerships are expected to further efficiency in the overall development of smart cities. Ladies and gentlemen, as you're aware, the term smart city has multiple connotations as it signifies digital city, knowledge city, intelligent city, connected city, all at the same time. In view of this, I'd like to bring your attention to some aspects of smart cities which will be equally vital in developing an inclusive, technologically advanced, and progressive society going forward. And what are these? Foremost among these is the essential role to be played by healthcare, inclusion, and assisted living in smart cities. Many existing and potential technologies under development for the maintenance and supervision of health and well-being offer great promise in this regard. These range from health monitoring services to lifestyle monitoring, including platforms for the elderly, support to independent living with social and medical assistance at homes, and helping people with chronic diseases, and curtailing the barriers to learning and participation. The needs of people with physical disabilities or differently enabled people need to be specially taken into account, and BIF takes this as a very high priority in its work. With increased use of the ICT among elderly people, technologies need to be more and more elderly friendly to encourage them to use the services. Current trends in personal health systems, fueled by advances in ICT, biomedical engineering, healthcare technologies, and micro or nanotechnologies can greatly contribute to these goals. Smart energy, smart grids, that's another area where huge benefits are possible in India. And Yet another one, traffic being quite chaotic in quite a few cities and towns these days. A widespread adoption of intelligent transport systems is vital, and that's made possible by smart cities. The applicability of all these technologies is based on the foundational requirement of ubiquitous, reliable, and uninterrupted availability of a robust broadband connectivity infrastructure. The root of the same can be provided a planned and well laid out fiber network across the entire city, fiber being the most reliable and high quality medium for providing data services and backhaul. Other advanced wireless technologies like Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, E-band, V-band will all help deliver ubiquitous connectivity at lower costs. And I would like to mention yet another very fundamental requirement of smart city is for more and more smart buildings. You can't have a smart city without most of the buildings, key buildings at least, being smart. As citizens spend majority of time in such buildings, according to some surveys, 60 to 70%, it is imperative that effective in-building solutions be deployed to offer seamless connectivity. And BIF is working closely with MOHUA and TRI-DOT and BIS for introducing suitable amendment to Section 6 of the National Building Code. We are very happy to be associated with MOHUA in this. We're very grateful for their direction and leadership here. The critical requirement to achieve missions, the goals of the mission, therefore, is the development of a number of technologies in the area of wireless and fixed communication networks to form the backbone of smart city operation. Both government and industry are fully committed to this objective, and we believe we are looking forward to a progressive streak going forward, faster implementation of the requisite measures. And like I said earlier, and like the Honorable Joint Secretary clearly stated, and I agree there with him, it is a continuous journey. It's always easy to say the glass is half empty. It's always half full also. So we have to look at the positivity and surge ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not take up more of your time. We have a great galaxy of high-level policymakers as well as subject matter specialists today. And I'm sure you're all very anxiously awaiting to hear from them. I wish the conference all the very best. BIF will always be there, trying to do its best to contribute to the effort of the government and the regulator in these critical projects to take India advanced in the global map. And we look forward to several interesting and productive outcomes that would help the government of India in this important mission from this conference. Thank you very much for your patient hearing, ladies and gentlemen. I would now like to take just a minute or two to introduce our chief guest, Shri Kunal Kumar, IAS, Joint Secretary and Mission Director of Smart Cities Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. Earlier, he was Municipal Commissioner of the Pune Municipal Corporation, and that had done tremendous a lot of work in the smart city area that I know of. And he was there for close to 4 years. He'd been working in the state of Maharashtra since 1999 and served in various cities across the state of Maharashtra. Shri Kunal Kumar has worked as district collector in 3 districts of Bandara, Jalgaon, and Aurangabad, and also worked as municipal commissioner in Kolhapur Municipal Corporation. Besides traveling, he has an avid interest in reading and follows sports across the world. He's a highly qualified person. He is an electrical engineering graduate from IIT Roorkee and has successfully completed his master's in public management from National University of Singapore, jointly conducted with Harvard Kennedy School, Cambridge, USA. Shri Kunal Kumar was awarded the Prime Minister of India's Award for Excellence in Aadhaar Governance during his stint as District Collector of Aurangabad. I don't think we could have hoped for a better chief guest today for this important conference. I'm very grateful to Shri Kunal Kumar for having spared time from his busy schedule to be with us today and to deliver his chief guest address. Sir, I request you to come forward and deliver your address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramachandran. That was a very generous introduction. I almost felt I'm here for a job interview because my CV was read out. But that's not the case. I'm pretty much enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm not looking for a switch at this moment. So just to start on that lighter note, I think I should thank your organization, the Broadband India Forum, for having brought together a galaxy of very important people to discuss on something which is very important and very relevant for our country. And I think despite COVID, one of the things that we have seen is the use of technology successfully in keeping everyone engaged with the thoughts that we should be at this right moment. So without taking much time, I would try to reflect on certain things that you have pointed out in your opening remarks, and see if I can try to cover a galaxy of certain things which probably the audience and my fellow participants would want to hear from me as a representative of MOHUA and someone who is spearheading the Smart Cities mission in the ministry. First of all, I think as an outsider, fundamentally, we do not see the importance of cities as much as they have been to the world's progress so far. And if you look at the statistics, around 1800, there were 3% of global citizens who lived in urban areas. I think the biggest city in 1800 was, if I'm not wrong, Beijing. And then in 1900, 15% of world population was living in urban areas. And then London used to be the biggest city in the world. In 2000, we reached close to 50%. And in 2006, that was a tipping point where more people in the world lived in urban areas and rural areas. We crossed the 50% point. And you can see from 3% in 1800 to 50% in 2006. And 1800, you have to imagine from eternity, it came to 3%. And suddenly, post the Industrial Revolution, we almost, jumped multifold. This was geometrical progression to 50%. And then by 2050, the world is probably going to be about 2/3 urban. And by 2100, we will be around 85 to 90% urban across the world, which is why this century is called the century of cities. Because post this century, I don't think post 90% urbanization, you would find some new big city building activity happen. The way city building will happen in this century, it will almost probably come to an end in that magnitude. Tinkering at the sites will happen post 2100. So clearly, we are in the third decade of a century which is going to be all about building cities and driving new development in cities. Then we saw another trend, and this is highlighted by certain facts, like, if I'm not wrong, in 2000, 2% of data was digitized. Then came Googles of the world and so much, and now 98% of the world's data seems to be digitized. Everything that has been written so far seems 90+% of that is available in digital form. You have, sharp reduction in the cost of bandwidth. You have sharp reduction in the cost of storage systems. Moore's law applies, and fundamentally all your semiconductor and chip speed and microprocessor speeds are multiplying by 1.5 times every 2 years. And so, people who are fanatics in artificial intelligence keep saying that by 2027, the machine intelligence speed will go beyond the speed of a human brain. And all of them are working towards singularity and stuff like that. So essentially, this trend and the trend of urbanization, when they collide, there the term called smart city emerges. And that's logical in the process of evolution, that we would see that the latest technologies and a way of habitation that has emerged intersect to see how they will change the course of evolution of each other. And that is where smart cities is not something, it's not a one-way street. We have to look at the intersection in both ways, how this affects that and how this affects the other. And if you see India's strengths in this, we in fact were exactly as urban as China into 1980. We were 26% urban. But post that, in 1990, India and China were 26. Today we are about 34% and China is 58%. Of course, these percentages depend on how you calculate. And there are different formulae, so it's not directly one-to-one comparison. It's not apple to apple. It's apple to orange actually. But you just get a sense of the importance that is being given in a certain area of the world. And we are projected to be, as you said, 40% by 2030 and 50% by 2050. But if you go by multiple ways of looking at things, if you look at how Mexico defines urban, you are already 65% urban. If you look at how China defines urban, you are already 60% urban. If you look at how the World Bank says about the World Agglomeration Index, you're already 55% urban. And if you just remove that one criteria you have in the census of defining in the Constitution, there are multiple parameters given of how you define an urban area. One of them is that 75% of the male population should be in non-agricultural activities. If you just remove that, then you're already 78% urban. So it's very difficult to actually put a number to India's urbanization. We all see that we will drive out of our cities. There is a big, mess of unplanned growth that we see. All of that essentially, if you look at economic boundaries, they're all inside a city. Administrative boundaries may be different. So the percentage that we deal with, 40, 60, all has to be taken with a pinch of salt. And it has to be discussed in a much more wider way. Now, having said that, we are part of a federal system. We have to realize that cities are not sub-regional offices and states are not regional offices of the central government. They are independent entities. And in the case of the United States, if you are the President of the United States and you're traveling to San Francisco, officially the President of the United States has to seek permission from the mayor to enter the city. That is the fundamental nature of how these governments exist. Most of the times when I talk to industry, they say, why NHAI can just bulldoze work across the country and why can't smart cities do? Because NHAI in Pune is a regional office of NHAI Delhi, but Pune city is not a regional office of Mahua. Pune city has a different government, it has a different manifesto, it has a different aspiration, and it is wanting to achieve that. So this is more a process of different units and a federal structure working together. And you see how states and center, so many different issues and how they solve. There is a council of chief ministers, prime minister is there, and meetings happen and consensus building happens. Similar things happen in the city, and it happens on a much wider scale because at the lower ground level you have many more stakeholders who have a bigger voice. Every street you have someone who's a person who vouches for that street. So having said that, there are multiple layers of activities which go on, and we have to see smart cities not as a technology powerhouse. We have to see it in those multiple layers. The first layer is about how do you build basic infrastructure. You're talking about housing, sanitation, water. Can't do without it. Can't put a sensor if you have not a pipe. You don't have a pipe. So you're looking at that evolution. Then you're looking at institutional evolution. You're looking at evolution of governance systems. Building whether you have directly elected mayors. So how do you build your HR capabilities? How do you build capacity of your human resources? Then you are looking at a layer of planning. You rightly said urban planning. How do you look at urban planning? Urban planning laws were created by the British, and most of our urban planning laws in states are 1950s and 60s. How do you revamp that? How do you make it more as per the needs of today? And then you have, so there are multiple layers, and technology is one of those layers. And we have to see this as a bouquet of things. As a flower, if you get a bouquet, you have multiple different kinds of flowers. Even if there is single flower, multiple different flowers. One is investment, one is policy, one is infrastructure, and services, planning, technology, and everything comes together. Then you get a smart city. So it's a different thing, and it's very contextual. For me in Delhi, a smart city may mean as a citizen clean air. For you in Bangalore, it may mean better transport. For Pune, it would mean freedom from flooding of rivers. Or in Bhubaneswar, it may mean maybe better settlement for slum dwellers. So we have to understand that we have to be conscious of the fact there is no one template. And there is no one template, there will be implementational challenges. People will evolve in different ways. Different cities will evolve in their own speeds and scale and everything, and we have to absorb all that. Our country is probably one of the most heterogeneous countries in the world. So different speeds will even multiply many more folds in our country. So we have these multi-layered approach. All cities have sanitation program called Swachh Bharat, housing for all PMAY, Amrit in 500 cities for water and sewage. And smart cities are there in 100 cities, trying to become the laboratories which will drive how other cities may function in the future. So it's basically an experiment at the scale of 100 million people, 10 crore people actually in these 100 cities are going through this, what we call this idea and evolution of smart cities, so that other cities can then similarly move in those fields. Now, the principles that have emerged, so as I talked, there are so many different things, but core principles are four. How do you create more from less? Our country is not blessed as much as with resources, as financial resources, as many of the European countries were when they started the urbanization journey. Having said that, there are multiple ways of generating resources, and definitely, maybe for all that we will be at some point in time have more resources, but currently we don't have. So we have to have more from less. The second is that we have to create something which is called affordable excellence. It has to be affordable yet an excellent. So something which is affordable excellence, I keep talking about in multiple forums, is this mobile phone. It's an affordable device, an excellent device for communication. The richest of the richest have it, the poorest of the poor have it, and everybody can use it. So can we think of public transport as a mobile phone? So tomorrow, public transport is available to everyone, whether the poorest of the poor, richest of the richest, or water supply, or sanitation, or maybe housing. Can we create mobile phones in these fields? I mean, just to create an analogy of something which is affordable and excellent. Third, it has to be sustainable. It is not about today we are talking about tomorrow. So you're investing in roads, invest in a way it's climate sensitive. You're investing in street lights, invest in a way it's climate sensitive. Be LED, not sodium vapor, stuff like that. It's not only about that. It's also about creating communal harmony, economic shocks, natural disasters, resilience, all the kinds of things that go into preventing, creating future-ready cities. And the fourth thing that comes out, which you alluded to in your talk also, is about inclusiveness. Every segment of society. We may have all these indices, that ease of living index and quality of life index and all these indices to say that this city is better than others. But if I come out of my house in the morning to go to my office or go to my workplace, and I get a sense of feeling of aha, I get a feeling that, I am invited to this city, the city cares for me. It seems to be a city where I can, contribute, or the city is, looking at my ideas or is thinking about me. I feel I'm in a smart city. That you cannot describe in a number of mathematical formulas, but that's a feeling. So inclusiveness is all about this. Every person in the city should get this feeling. And till the time you have this feeling, you are still in that journey that you keep talking about. It's a journey. One person not being satisfied, it still keeps the journey going. And all persons cannot may be satisfied today, but tomorrow, again, there'll be a certain level of dissatisfaction. We never knew COVID was going to come 3 years back. Tomorrow, there will be a different challenge. Challenges do emerge, and therefore, this process of evolution will continue. Now, on technology, in fact, again, we have just launched the National Urban Digital Mission. So we started with the National Urban Innovation Stack. We started using technology for a lot of different things. I mean, you see, technologies for governance. You talked about ICCC. There are a lot of mobile apps came out, and then we created the National Urban Innovation Stack. We are moving towards standardization now. 3 years of practice and got us to create standards. So Dr. Upadhyay is here. He knows that he's also part of the IoT standards, and there are multiple other standards they're coming out with. Then a lot of work is happening on e-governance solutions, solid-based management, and water supply, use of sensors, SCADA systems, education, smart classrooms, and educational materials, creating schools which are more personalized in nature. They mimic the needs of the students. Traffic and transport, ITMS systems, mobility and transport systems, health, smart health infrastructure, environmental sensors, environmental pollution control systems, all of that, flood control and all that. So many of these technologies are getting embedded into our cities. Drones, artificial intelligence, machine learning, emerging technologies of many different kinds, solar, wind energy, and so on and so forth. You talked about the COVID disaster. So many different kinds of technologies were used during COVID, essentially in 4 verticals to gather information, because COVID management required a lot of information gathering. So you were getting information from different sources using technology. It required a lot of communication, two-way communication between citizens, cities, and stakeholders. That happened by technology. The third thing is management. You manage lockdown, you manage services, you manage infrastructure, you manage hospitals, you manage logistics, all that happens. The fourth thing is about prediction. You were able to use technology to predict the future course of the pandemic and therefore be prepared for it. So all this was happening by virtue of technology, and that is why we were able to, do whatever we were able to. Of course, the pandemic is not over, and we have to be very humble about it. We will never boast that we have, done it successfully. But I think it has been a great help. It has been a great help, and these cities were really able to channelize the investment of smart cities into handling this. Of course, we are working on data very specifically. Just to tell you a fact, 3 years down the line, none of our cities had anything called a data officer. Today, all the 100 cities have city data officers, and now we are going towards 500 cities having city data officers. We had no technology teams in our cities. Some of the cities had it, the big cities. So now we are going deeper into this. By at least 250, the municipal corporations of the city will have, technology teams of some stature by the end of 2022. We are trying to get to e-governance solutions in at least 2022 cities by 2022. That is a target we have taken for ourselves. All of this will be open source, so it will be available to everyone free of cost. The idea of the NUIS is to make things available as public goods. So we're creating a national urban learning platform which is available to everyone. We're creating a stack which is available to everyone, and various reference applications built on the standards that we are talking about for everyone to consume. So I will, and then ultimately, in the use of technology, fundamentally, ethics is very important. Responsible use of technology is important. There's a whole debate about data privacy and data safety, cyber security, how you actually safeguard the interests of the city and its citizens and its communities. How you actually, look at technology. Sometimes when I look at technology and reflect on it, I think technology is like riding a tiger. You are on top of it, it's fine. The moment you slip, the tiger has all the freedom to just, eat you up. And that's how technology is. And we have to be fundamentally aware of this fact. Because in an evolution curve, we have to accept that the speed has to be as per the evolution. And this is where I think public-private partnership in even building capacity is very important, which is where, we just last year started this program called the National Urban Innovation Program, along with the US government. And we are working with USTDA. Hopefully in about 3 to 4 months from now, you will see the blueprint of a completely new support system for the urban areas in the country, where localized support on technology, on governance, and things like that will be made available to cities to scale up their capacity by multi-folds in the coming 3 to 4 years. So that's something we are working on in parallel. So these are the issues I wanted to discuss within this conference. I'm not sure I'm filling in up for my secretary. He would have definitely given you much more brighter ideas. Last moment he could not join, but I think for me it's very it's a fantastic opportunity to meet such illuminous and great people from the industry. I would only say at the end, we are not building smart cities as Mahua or Smart Cities mission. You are the ones who are building it on the streets. You are the ones, along with the cities and the states, who are working very hard. We are, of course, sitting here to take all the credit for the work that you do and boast it as Smart Cities mission. But ultimately, it's all of you who are the champions, and keep being the champions. My best wishes to all of you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for a fantastic insight of the smart city. Yes, I agree. Every smart city, the demand and the state is different, and every state looks at it in a different way. Who else can be a better sharing of those things? We have people from IBM, GAIA, CDOT, TCL, and BCL, who has been working on this various smart cities. Thank you very much, sir. Now I request the keynote speaker of the event, Deepak K. Koshi, who's the Technical Executive Partner Ecosystem of IBM India South Asia. Deepak Koshi is a seasoned technology leader whose core responsibility is to drive technology engagement and strategy for IBM partner ecosystem. Deepak, over to you.
Thank you, Shashi. It is truly an honor and a pleasure to be part of this event, and surrounded by so many great leaders, thinkers, and I think after Mr. Ramchandran and Mr. Kunal Kumar, frankly, you realize the amount of expertise and experience and passion that's going into making this happen. So it was wonderful listening to both of you, and I hope I won't bore you too much, because my perspective is really more from a pure technology perspective, right? It's clearly it is there is a lot that is happening on ground, but as we've been saying repeatedly, the journey to smart cities is a journey, right? It is going to go through multiple rounds of evolution. It needs us to incorporate new capabilities, new technologies, and use it effectively, right? So let me maybe just I will just share a few slides, and the intent really is to give you a sense of where to share a perspective of where we can go, as all of this is evolving. So I hope my slides are visible. My screen's visible. Great. All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. So, I mean, of course, as Mr. Kunal sir, as Ramchandran sir was saying, clearly the need for smart cities is underlined time and again. I mean, we know the huge explosion of population that's going to happen in the urban centers. 50% of India by 2050 and beyond, and frankly, the only way that we can deal with this is to build the smart cities. And I think the key word here is smart, right? And smart really is about being able to make intelligent decisions, informed decisions on how to manage the environment for all the population in the cities, to drive economic growth, to improve the quality of life for people, who are coming to the city, and how do we really harness technology to achieve these objectives, right? So while we've made a great start, and obviously it was a new concept for us, and I think we made a great start in establishing a foundation in as Kunal sir was just talking about. I mean, not just at an individual city level, but at a framework level, with the National Urban Digital Mission, with the innovation approach. It's really there's a lot that's happening, but the question again we have to think through and ask ourselves is, okay, so where do we go from here? So that's really the objective of what I'm going to try and cover. It's a humble perspective on what are the things that we have learned, what are the things that we can continue to learn, and what can we do to accelerate our ability to build smarter cities, right? And I think now it's really a journey to build smarter cities and continuously smarter cities. So let's just take a moment to go over what have we learned so far. So first, of course, there is the elephant in the room, which is, well, something that I think we've all experienced. It has been a personal experience and a tragic experience for a lot of us, but and it is ongoing. But the impact of the pandemic has truly been unprecedented, right? But I think the thing to remember is that through this we have also learned some very important things, and not just in the context of smart cities. And of course, Kunal sir was talking about some great examples of how cities have learned to deal with things, to manage, predict, and so on. But I think it's very important to also pay attention to how citizen behavior has changed. I think from the fact that for a lot of us for whom travel was an essential part of our lives, we've looked at it now as something that is frankly an unnecessary activity, right? I mean, we only do that as much as we have to, right? The fact that we learned how to order from our local kirana shops using WhatsApp, right? I mean, when technology didn't exist, we found the typical Indian way, a jugaad solution of making that happen. From switching we switched to a completely remote model of education, at least in the urban centers. I know it was obviously not as effective and possible in the non-urban areas, but largely everyone switched to a remote form of education, to even learning to consult with our doctors online, right? Or telemedicine and video calls and so on and so forth. And of course, the most obvious example was when we learned how to, we even started forming groups on WhatsApp or whatever medium was available to offer help to those who needed help. So the interesting thing was we learned how to live our lives through minimum physical interaction. And in other words, we learned how to go digital even more so, right? While demonetization taught us as citizens to be shift to digital payments, I think the pandemic has really taught us how to shift to digital in every aspect of our lives. And that's a very important thing to remember, because it's about how behavior has changed, right? I mean, earlier people probably had a lot more resistance to adopting technology, but as a direct result of the pandemic, there was no other option. So it has been a watershed moment in that way, especially in the cities, and I think it's something very important to keep that in mind, right? So while that is there, let's also now take a look at moving on to how does what have we learned in the cities themselves, or rather from from a broader perspective, right? So of course, the in every city, and I do not need to explain this to all of you expert, but every city has really about 4 or 5 different components, right? You have your people, you have the businesses and commerce that you have things like transportation, mobility, communication, and of course all the utility services that keep us all happy and healthy and keeping our homes running, right? Now, the infrastructure of our cities are undoubtedly under stress, be it from water. There is clearly water shortage in most urban centers. There is electricity issues. Sanitation, of course, continues to be a big challenge. As Kunal sir said, yes, and I'm based in Bangalore. I would love to have better traffic management and better transportation in Bangalore. And this is actually, the trend is only going to accelerate. I mean, the stress on our infrastructure is only going to accelerate. On the other side of it, the people-centric systems of our city, which includes our public safety, health, education, they also are required to cater to a lot of different workforces. Obviously, as our cities have expanded and a lot of population has come in, it has attracted people from very, very diverse backgrounds, very diverse socioeconomic strata, very different expectations from what it means to have a good quality of life, what are the kind of opportunities they're looking to build for themselves. And then, of course, as we've all experienced, again, as a global thing, the cities do get a brunt of being able to plan better for all the extreme weather that we get due to climate change, for example. Just another example of how environmental management and disaster management needs to become central to every city's planning. So these are all things that we have learned to kind of take and accept as something that needs to be done. And of course, every city, with the people, there is health, and especially in the pandemic, how do you manage health of people better, and so on. So these are definitely some trends I think we all recognize as citizens of most cities. We all feel that this is something that we all need to consider. Now, on the flip side of it, there is also a lot of technology trends that have been happening, right? So, of course, the fact that we have excellent connectivity and communication systems today. I mean, I think our between our different national players, we have got connectivity like never before. I mean, a video call is not an unthinkable thing for any of us anymore. The fact that there is so much of data available, data about systems, data about cities, data about people. There is an enormous amount of data available, and that is probably beyond Moore's law. The one law that's going to go faster is going to be the law of how much data is being generated in the world. The fact that social media has transcended the way national boundaries, city boundaries, all kinds of boundaries. It is a very powerful medium, which can have good and bad effects, but it is a very powerful medium. And I think going back to what Kunal sir said earlier, I mean, the example of the smartphone, right? I mean, technology is everywhere. I mean, just through that smartphone, technology is everywhere, and I think it is important to embrace that and see what we can do more about it. So. Of course, we already have enough and more examples of where we are truly making and taking advantage of all of these forces that are there. I mean, for example, IBM recently partnered with Niti Aayog in the Ministry of Education to launch the Samshiksha platform, which is really about distance education, online digital education, which in today's environment became even more important, right? So it is clearly going to be something that we have to do more of, and it has to be something that we have to drive in every aspect of engagement. So, given that this is the landscape, I just want to share a few thoughts on where is the future of technology going, right? So the first thought that comes to mind is about engagement. And clearly, when we say engagement, it is about engaging citizens. It's engaging citizens, engaging government, government engaging citizens, government to government. How do you drive better and more insightful and more meaningful engagement for everyone. So, for example, we of course talked about AI and machine learning. I mean, these are obvious examples which are already being implemented to some extent. But frankly, the biggest challenge for anything to do with AI is the amount of data we have. It takes time. It takes data to train artificial intelligence systems. As more and more data is being made available, it is extremely viable for us to have more and more AI systems, more and more deeper machine learning systems across video, across social media, across even digitization of paper records, for example. There is a lot more that can be done using AI and ML. IoT, of course, is already common. Then there's also technologies like blockchain. Blockchain, of course, most of us associate with cryptocurrency, but blockchain is really an excellent technology for transaction management. I mean, the most common example that I think I've heard people give is for sale of property, for example. You have how do you kind of manage transactions, secure transaction, immutable transactions that can't be changed over time. But in the context of what's happening around us right now, say for the vaccine program, blockchain to ensure that the cold chain is being maintained from the point of manufacturing all the way to the point of distribution. Blockchain is an excellent technology that actually can enable that. Now, I think the key to it is really going to be about how we merge all of these technologies. How do we merge what is happening in AI, ML? How do we merge the data that is being generated from IoT? Using that to train more and more sophisticated AI, ML models, machine learning models, and then applying that in the context of automating and managing touchless, contactless processes, right? So if you look at it from the citizen services standpoint for a smart city, how does a citizen interact with the smart city? And of course, it's a concept, but basically, how does the citizen interact with the government around it and around the citizen? So it's from everything from learning, starting from the chatbot for interaction to being able to drive the processes for an actual requirement. Using digital channels, using digital medium only, using the likes of AI to recommend what is the best approach instead of call centers. And I think especially during the pandemic, we had a lot of situations of people frantically calling call centers for information. And of course, we did what we could at that point in time, but it's really about how do we infuse AI and ML and IoT kind of technologies in every aspect of our life. And that is, I think, going to be a key differentiator in how we can engage with the citizens and how the citizens can engage with the city, right, and with the community in general. So that is one thought that I want to put out there. The fact that it has to come to a meeting point of all these technologies. The second thought I want to put out there is really about edge computing. Now, traditionally, we've all had a situation where, any data that is being generated is always taken to a central system, central server, central data center, processed and sent back for recommendation. Now, with 5G coming in, with with IoT coming in, the amount of data that is being generated is actually humongous, and it's too expensive to transfer everything back to the central environment, right? So that is where
you need to close. The time is
moving, sir.
Yeah.
And that is where edge technologies really will help us move forward and move the decision-making process to the actual place where the data is being generated. The third thing I want to talk about briefly is really cybersecurity, and this is something I think we're all dealing with on a day-to-day life. I mean, being from ransomware to malicious attacks, it is something that is increasingly important, and all of these increasingly is really also going to be about infusing the likes of artificial intelligence to make better decisions about cybersecurity. And of course, being from IBM, I cannot skip talking about hybrid cloud, because it really is going to be about the infrastructure to make everything happen. And one last thought I want to leave out there, and maybe a little forward thinking, is really about quantum computing. So it's a new field. It is about creating machines and systems that allow you to do work, modeling that you can never do before. But as cities evolve into the next generation, the amount of data that's going to be generated is going to be even exponentially more. The kind of complexity of problems, I mean, take disaster management, flood situations. It's very difficult to model those to figure out what is the right thing to do. So quantum computing is something that we can use, and we are already working with a lot of leading educational institutions to drive that. But it is another trend I think we should all keep in mind when it comes to, how to make this happen. In conclusion, I just want to say is that, the future of our smart cities really is going to be about intelligent systems being able to use every kind of technology in every which way possible, making them work together to create a sustainable environment, to create a sustainable world for citizens of the city, and ultimately to create a better society for all of us. So thank you for your time. I apologize if I overran a little bit, Shashi, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, let me bring in our moderator, Sumit Chaudhary, who's the expert in artificial intelligence, digital economy, telecom, etc. Dr. Chaudhary is the founder and managing director of Gaya Smart Cities, who has been associated with various smart cities in India. He's also the CTO of Brookfield Properties. Sumit continues to work as an ICT digital advisor to various smart cities in country and few in abroad. He's an Australian citizen, but paid tax in India. That's a fantastic this thing. Sumit, over to you.
I think that was a very directed conversation, Sashi, about the passport. But yeah,
can you just come?
So much. Yeah.
So can I come in, Kunal Kumar?
Sure.
I may not be on the call for a long time. I just wanted to request Sashi if he can share the presentations made on the call with me.
I will, sir. I will
get back to those people later with my thoughts.
Sir, I will come next week and meet you personally, and I'll give you. It will be an opportunity to meet you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kunal, sir.
Now I'll hear Sumit. Thank you. Sorry.
It's a pleasure to be the moderator today. I actually have the pleasure to actually work with Kunal sir on his committees and have been working in the smart city space for the last 6 years. The company we formed after I got out of Jio was only focused on solutions. As you said that it's riding a tiger. I consider myself to be the jockey. Sometimes I'm on the tiger, sometimes I'm on the ground, but luckily 6 years later, I have lost a couple of tails here and there, but a lot of experience working with all the smart cities, all the passionate people who think that they are going to make a difference. And that is what is required, as Kunal sir said, that you require people with passion who believe that they are going to make a difference. And I'm not going to give a starting remark on the panel. There are lots of people who are here today who will join me in giving their opening remarks about what they are doing. And then I will have a set of questions for them, which will lead them to some of the ideas that I have been pushing for in various cities. I worked on 14 smart city plans across the country, worked on multiple smart city as a consultant, and then implementation in various places, including using technology for Swachh Bharat, airports, and many other places. So have got my hands dirty working in making a transformation in this country. So without spending too much time on introducing the topic or the people, I'm going to ask all the panelists to join in and give their opening remark. Deepak, I think you already had your turn in giving the presentation about IBM. So I'll start with Sanjeev Kumar sir from TCIL and give about 4 to 5 minutes of your interpretation of where you are doing and what you're doing. And then to that effect, we'll go over to George Kurvilla sir from BESEL, and then Dr. Upadhyay from CDOT, and we'll come back with some questions after all of the people have had their opening remarks. So over to you, Sanjeev Kumar sir.
TCL, being a government of India company, we actively participate in various opportunities of smart cities available within the country. Smart city basically is how we can improve the quality of life of the people, how we can conserve the resources, how we can deploy the technology to for e-governance and for various other benefits available to the citizens. Now, the major challenge as a TCL we face. See, one of the major one of the major component of any smart city is the technology and the connectivity which you require between the various components of the smart city applications, be it cameras, be it smart meters, because of the fragmented approach, whereas which are based on which the smart city applications are being planned, we end up creating a duplicate infrastructure in various cities. Maybe it may be even like in one particular state, there may be 2 or 3 smart cities planned. Now, different cities, they are planning their own data centers, whereas one cloud-based data center could be good enough for them. Similarly, it's like for, say, intelligent traffic management systems, you create a backbone network for this safe city applications. You put up the cameras. For again, creating Wi-Fi hotspot, you create a different infrastructure. So there could have been a common infrastructure to interconnect or provide interconnectivity with these different applications, and that way it can be much more effective and can be implemented in an effective way with lesser resources. Similarly, another challenge which as a executor TCL faces, that when any specifications are made for a smart city applications, whatever the requirements, and when we are making specific at time, we end up making specifications which are not customized, which are very OEM specific, and they are not more open source. As Kunal has said, that they are working on bringing out the open source platforms. So there is a need to have a openness in data interoperability in various OEMs which are to be deployed, so that whatever the bids being submitted become more competitive. Third, like this recent pandemic, it has thrown a major challenge for everybody, and in fact this management of the pandemic has become a common requirement for any smart cities, that how when such kind of natural calamity occur, like this COVID-19, how we can manage it effectively to safeguard our citizens. Thank you.
I think you have brought out a couple of very good points, sir, especially in how tendering has been done across the various cities. This is one of the challenges that most companies have faced, including all the PSUs that are on the table today. I think the country could have done this thing in hindsight. Kunal sir is also here, so he will know that in hindsight, it might actually have been structured differently, but we couldn't have at the point in time when these the tenders were being given. The speed at which we had to execute 100 cities, they had to be done in parallel. But now, with the committees that has been set up, he's coming up with a common framework around where the next set of cities, the next set of investments will all be done in a slightly more common, with more open source systems. I think more standards based approaches instead of vendor driven. I think those are very, very important things, sir, that you brought out, and also the use of these centers. I think both TVR sir and Kunal Kumar sir also talked about how all these centers became hubs of the COVID-19 response for the cities, and Agra was one of the first ones. So I have my own personal experience transforming the command center into a COVID center last April. But moving on, we will come back to your questions. George sir, a couple of opening remarks from you before I come back to Sanjeev sir.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity given, and I'm really happy to be part of the session here and to listen from eminent speakers and also talk from the perspective of BESEL as an organization. So as BESEL means is Broadcast Engineering Consultant India Limited. So originally when we started off, our entire focus was broadcasting, and we were looking to all the projects concerning broadcasting, including Lok Sabha television, the Raj Sabha television, and in the radio, the entire private FM backbone has been made by us in 86 cities, where we have made the common transmission infrastructure in 86 cities on the towers of Prasar Bharati. So entire private FM works on that system. Similarly, the community radio is our area where we manufacture in our Bangalore office. And then the cable TV industry, we were part of it as part of government initiative. When we have gone from analog to digital, there was a DAS and thereafter the CAS, while we have gone into the digital set-top boxes. The entire monitoring setup was made and organized by BESEL with the ministry's instructions, and so also, the head-end, the audit of the cable TV head-ends and DTH head-ends, even that is the role that we play. So we were in the entire this thing, and then recently after I took over, we started expanding to CCTV, surveillance, access control, and therefore the smart city domains, the command and control. We are there in the social media domain because most of the organization, most of the government department, the social media is being handled by BESA. So therefore, the integrated media command and control, that also we are looking at. We built the 900 TV channel monitoring setup in Suchna Bhavan in Delhi, whereby we store 900 TV channel, that capacity we have developed in order to follow that the channels are following the cable TV in terms of the broadcast code and the advertisement code. So BESL is into now the entire technology space, and we are getting into newer areas. I think when the discussions come, we will get into that. Thank you.
Thank you, George sir. I think that's an impressive set of things that you're doing in the broadcast space. Just as an aside, I happen to be the advisor to BARC, Broadcast Audience Research, for the last 6 years. The entire TV monitoring and TRP rating, from what you were just saying, BESL should also be doing it and could also be doing the same thing at a national level. Very good. Thank you for your comments. I would now switch over to an opening remarks from Dr. Upadhyay from CDOT. We got a chance to speak yesterday, so thank you. Over to you, sir. Dr. Upadhyay, you might.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this August panel. So before I start on smart cities, CDOT is a technology R&D center of Government of India. It is funded by Government of India. We do research in various telecom technologies as well as the security of the nation. So we work in switching technology, transport technologies, development of applications, wireless, wireline, in all facets of telecom and the security part. As regards smart city, we have been working in IoT for last couple of years, and we have developed a service layer, which is called, which connects the applications on one end, devices on the other end. This particular service layer is one M2M compliant, and why, in fact, TCIL said, Sanjeev said that there are vendor lock-ins. So we also see that most of the implementations which are happening in the smart city, because a lot of practitioners are here, that's why I would like to dwell upon this point. Most of the smart city implementations are happening on a proprietary protocols, proprietary standards. Whereas our country has already, adopted a national standard on IoT based on 1M2M release 2 and release 3 is in progress. I think 1M2M is moving to release 4, release 5, and CDOT is very actively working with 1M2M. We did not, when we realized that the ecosystem is getting chaotic, so we thought standardization is one of the most important item, and therefore we started partnering with 1M2M. And I can say that 350 of our contributions were accepted by 1M2M, which became part of the standard. So only thing I would like to say, because a lot of practitioners are here, whatever investments you are making in the smart city, please ensure that it is compliant to the national standards. It is compliant to the BIS standards, so that there is no vendor lock-in, there is no interoperability issue, there is no data sharing issues. And on top of that, the biggest challenge tomorrow will come when we will have billions of devices. The biggest issue will be of security. Is there a rogue application entered? Is there a rogue devices entered? The security will be the paramount. And by going into the standard, you automatically ensure the security is taken care. Government is also working, we are also working now to develop a national trust center for onboarding these applications, onboarding these devices, so that only the authorized devices, authorized applications are in. So I would only say that, I would hear from others, but the smart city, if it has to, the investments are to be fruitful, it has to go standard wise. Secondly, whatever implementation we do, it should improve some way or the other this life of the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think you touched upon a few different things, which I will bring back what Kunal Kumar said, create more for less. And if we use standards, we'll be actually be able to do that. Otherwise, we are reinventing the wheel. And also affordable excellence. Once you excel in one city or one area, we need to figure out how to replicate that all across the country, bring it into the standards, which standards are not something which is fixed. Standards are something that should evolve with the times. And I have been part of the 1M2M, sir. I think we were 3 years too late. Given the velocity of the smart cities mission, we should have had this 3 years ago. I mean, this is my personal opinion, but
but now at least once the 1M2M standards have been transposed by TSDSI, which have been accepted as national standard, and which has also been put in BIS standard. The point is, if you have to scale up, if you have to, allow innovation to happen in the ecosystem, it has to be standard based. Otherwise, what happens if I'm using X company's smart city system? Only X company can, decide who should enter, who should not enter. Once you get into open standard, anybody can enter. Anybody who is capable, anybody who is, following the standard can get in. And once they get in, they also have advantage of transporting it, exporting it to the other countries. Otherwise, it is in a standard application which works in Bangalore, won't work in Noida, won't work in Chandigarh. It has to work the whole globe if you follow the global standard, which we have already adopted as a country.
Absolutely. I think what we have seen is that this first wave is probably 10% or even less of what is required in even the 100 cities. Forget about the rest of the country where we need to deploy the solution. So the first wave has gone past, but the second and the third and the fifth and the 10th will have to be on the standards that you are developing for the country. Some excellent work that you have done in the telecom. I'll ask you I'll start the questions with you only, sir, and then go back up the chain. So you have developed a lot of technologies, but one thing that I don't see is the monetization of this across India fast enough. It is happening. I have seen the companies which have taken over, but it is not happening fast enough. Why do you think? What can we do to help? Is there a process challenge? Is there a government rules challenge? Where do you see your?
Yeah, thank you. I think CDOT indeed is making a significant number of indigenous solutions based on cutting edge technologies. We are working in various fields. However, I agree, owing to various reasons, CDOT solutions have not been enjoying great visibility or market share in true commercial sense. But one thing I must say that it should be remembered that CDOT is not created to be a profit center itself. CDOT was meant to create an ecosystem of indigenous manufacturers or solution providers who would make our country self-reliant. Be it rural broadband, be it telecom security, be it disaster management, secure communication, Wi-Fi, or for that matter, IoT, CDOT products and solutions have been successfully deployed in India. We have 104 technology transfers done to various companies. We have 28 licensees who we don't sell directly. We license our technologies at a very reasonable price, no price in fact. If they sell, they pay us 4%. If they don't sell, it's fine. So the technology transfer is very, very easy. Now, in fact, you may be aware that we are having POC, proof of concept with BSNL for deploying our 4G solution. All these years, the biggest problem we were facing is that, experience clause. So with now there is emphasis on Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. I'm sure that the visibility of CDOT products and solutions will increase significantly. But I agree that if more focus is given to our indigenous R&D, I think our ecosystem of indigenous manufacturing will further go up. It has gone up drastically. For example, if I look at the electronics as a sector, we had a production of $29 billion in 2014. By 2020, we have touched around $75 billion of production. Government has taken various initiatives like PLI, PMI, and I'm sure that with the recent reforms which government has done in terms of promoting indigenous, CDOT visibility will increase.
So one of the things that I'll follow up on the smart cities domain for you is because this conference is on that. Have you seen any of your technologies deployed in the smart cities today? Yes. Have you?
Yes, yeah. CDOT's involvement in the smart city domain actually started with the Internet of Things. But as I said in the beginning, unlike the rest of the ecosystem players in the corporate world, major big companies, CDOT entered into with a purpose. The IoT ecosystem was getting flooded by proprietary solutions which are causing vendor lock-in, did not have interoperability, did not have data sharing across applications, and most importantly, and which is very, very important from the security perspective, they are vulnerable from security standpoint. So CDOT understood this, and we understood that without standardization, this ecosystem will become extremely chaotic and might become a pain point for all the practitioners. Therefore, we got involved with a global standardization body called 1M2M, started contributing to their specification. We are the largest contributor on that. And based on that, the TEC, the Telecom Engineering Center of Department of Telecom, has actually standardized these standards for the nation. Same national standards have also been referred to in the IoT system standard, recently published by BIS in Smart Cities Standardization Panel. As I said in the beginning, CDOT has developed the service layer for the IoT ecosystem, which is based on 1M2M national standards. And as everyone must be aware that it has been the hallmark of CDOT to promote and help the Indian industry. Same way was the case with our IoT. We have been working, organizing seminars, developing tutorials, making conferences, handholding various standards compliant application development. For example, if I name some of the organizations like Pyrox, Gaia Smart City, Sensorize, Redeem Systems, Viome, and CDEC, to name a few, have worked with our system and to ensure that their applications are compliant. So I would like to say through this platform that our CCSP, what we call common platform, which is 1M2M compliant, any device manufacturer, any application vendor can come to us to see that whether their applications are compliant or not. If they are non-compliant, we are going to help them to making it compliant, so that together with the applications and the this service layer, we put up a very good system for in entire country. So I would request if some of the startups are listening to this, if they need to test their application, whether they are 1M2M compliant or they are not 1M2M compliant, if they need to be handholded, CDOT will be very proudly handholding them to ensure that their applications are compliant. So definitely we are there, and we have this system. We are open to the industry to take it.
George sir, I'll come to you next. I mean, you have been working in the broadcast space, but you started doing IT and ICT projects lately. There's a lot of PSUs who are all taking this stance right now, from TCIL, BSNL, BSL, CEL. Everybody is trying to become master system integrators. I'm going to ask you a controversial question to say, what gives you the right to, and what advantage that you provide to the rest of the ecosystem, so that we all know about it and we can approach the market that way?
Yes, that's true. So initially, as we started, our mandate was purely broadcasting, and it continues to be that majorly. That's our mandate. In 2016, when I took over as CMD, we realized that these technologies are now converging. Now, even in broadcasting, the studio environment where we were doing tape-based kind of production, the entire television or for that matter, even radio. But then, we switched over to IP-based production now entirely. So we are, in fact, in the converged world, IT is part of now broadcasting. Now, when I built up my first project, when I joined BESL after serving nearly 23 years in Prasar Bharati with Doordarshan, my first of the projects was Rajya Sabha Television and Electronic Media Monitoring Center. Now, in Electronic Media Monitoring Center, we had to capture all the satellite, TV channels, and then transcode it and then store it for 90 days, put up the automation software, put on the servers. And so it's entirely, after we capture the signal, it's all an IT-based kind of a setup. So we started getting into all these, IT-based, storage servers, application software, and related, ecosystem. So that is how we found that, this is an area that we have to go And we are now television and broadcasting and radio, everything now, end of the day, it is now having IT backbone at the back end, and, and now streaming is happening, storage, streaming of data, and, media asset management, all on digital domain. So that's how we got into it. So now we can say that it's part of, the evolved, the requirement even for broadcasting is IT and ICT based services.
So the other follow-up question to that, sir, would be that the market is moving, the technologies are moving very fast in this domain. Do you work with startup companies? Do you work with them to bring some of those technologies to market?
Yes, so in fact, I have been very active in listening to the startup companies. In fact, every week I at least Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai, Pune, they keep coming, like a startup company, which we can put into our system. And very recently, we have brought out an expression, startup companies empaneled with us, so that we know that, okay, this is the strength that I can draw from. So we are working very, very close with this. One of the example I would say, the language localization for the, the recorded TV channels of across the country, and mainly with the Ministry of Education. So we realized that there is 80,000 hours of, program video recording lectures of IIT professors and eminent, teachers and lecturers. And, they are all there in the, domain, and, mostly in English language. And with Honorable Prime Minister, both on the last 15th of August and, this year, he was very clear that people should be taught in their, mother tongue. They'll understand things much better. And therefore, the language localization became one of the most, very, very, very prominent subject in the last few years. And so we, started working with the, technology companies who are doing language localization. And now we have, we can do in 8 different languages when partnered with them. And so, converting video to text and then text to text in that respective language, and then that, converted language into, again, voice, the end-to-end platform creating, so that in a very short time, we can convert 1 hour of video into a 1 hour of video with proper synchronization, in a different language, video to video. That's a very important area that we have gone into.
So I think that brings us to the 4th point that Kunal Kumar talked about, inclusiveness. I mean, if you look at what you're doing, allows content to reach a much larger audience. I'll switch over now to Deepak and ask you another controversial question. The first one is that IBM defined this space of smart cities. You came up with the term smart cities many years ago, and then you abandoned it in India, pretty much. What happened? Why did you abandon the West?
So I think it's a very fair point, Sumit. And yeah, you're right. I mean, actually, we started talking about smarter planet, smarter cities actually in 2008, 2009. And if you ask me, in hindsight, it was probably an idea a little ahead of its time. The underlying technology that needs to enable smart cities and smarter planet and everything else, it has probably achieved maturity only in the last couple of years, right? Now, the other thing, of course, is to the point you were just discussing with Mr. Kuruvilla, is that the model in which smart cities were taken up in India was a very MSI-led model, and that is not something that IBM was really into. So, and I think the intent was to build the foundation, which we've done now. Right, we've built the foundation now in a lot of places. We built the right kind of systems, the right kind of capabilities. So yeah, I mean, we haven't abandoned the concept. What has happened is we've taken the concept of smart and put it into everything we have now. We have AI in almost everything, and it's all based on open standards, open architectures. So I think it is something that we can still absolutely be relevant in.
So the follow-up question to that, Deepak, would be the fact that you talked about terabytes of data getting generated from everything. I frankly am not seeing terabytes of insight getting generated and that insight being used for decision making. There's a lot of tick mark implementations right now. Where have you seen real data driven decision making there. I mean, yes, we have a command center, but people are not using it for real data. It is there for doing for operational reasons, not for the use of data for core decision making is where I'm looking for your ideas.
So, if you ask me, Sumit, frankly, it's something that across the board, and we have a few examples, like in Jakarta, for example, there was a good example where they built a good data lake, and they're trying to figure out what use cases need the data-driven decision making. I mean, like you said, it's really, the first step is really about just creating the reports and dashboards so everyone knows what's happening. But decision making is the next step. And if you ask me, it's an ongoing process. And frankly, the best way to learn where we need to pull this is, I think the corporate segment in India, for example, is doing some very interesting stuff around where can they apply AI, right, in decision-making things. So it could be around process automation, it could be around security. So for example, Kunal sir, I think, was talking about smarter buildings, right? How do you take the data and be able to make decisions instantly? So it is very much an evolving area. And I think we can learn a lot from the corporates because they're all trying to figure out, and there are some very good examples of what kind of use cases make sense for data-driven decision making.
Yeah. Good. Sir, Sanjeev Kumar sir, I'll go over to you and your insight. I mean, you have been bidding for a lot of these projects, some successfully, some not so. What are your challenges in the bidding process today? Why you are actively going after this? So, but there are other PSUs who have done better. As I said, I mentioned in my email to you that I'll be a bit controversial. So, what do you lack, and how can the universe help you?
See, as I told earlier, that at times the tender specs are made in such a way that is more favor to specific OEMs. Second challenge which I usually find.
Sir, you are not an OEM. You are the MSI.
Yeah, so that's why but that when you go for taking the bid from different OEMs, if there's only one OEM, so now it's up to that OEM to decide to whom they want to give the best offer. That's the one point. Second point, that at time when there is a quality cum cost based bidding is there, you will have marks for how many cameras you have put up or how many devices you have put up. But the most important part where the TCL has the strength is the connectivity. Now, if there is a good connectivity, irrespective of that what good camera you have put up, if the feed is not reaching to the command and control centers, it will not work. So no leverage or weightage is given to the experience for providing the connectivity.
But then you're competing with BSNL.
No, it's not a question of competing with BSNL. Nowadays, you have the SD-WAN technology where you can, combine multiple, type of technology for providing interconnectivity between 2 points. So you need not to depend on one operator for that. But TCL
as an MSI, they are also trying to compete as an MSI in the Smart Cities project. You are also competing as an MSI in Smart Cities project. You are going after the same set of cities. That's why I'll stop there. I know there are challenges out in the field. I've been on the other side of the thing, and I completely agree with you in terms of the OEM standards. There are. Do you work with startups? Do you work with innovative companies, empanel them, and get them to help you with these? Or that's the second follow-up question to you, sir.
Like for execution of any project, when we go for selection of partners, we have a specific preference specifically for startups, where we don't put the very stringent eligibility requirement for startups, and the biggest advantage I see working with the startups is that the cost benefit which a startup can give, unlike a big companies. So startups are most welcome with TCLs, and we are already having active policies to encourage the startups to work with us.
Now I'm going to sort of reach the closing question and let everybody close with that answer. And the answer is very, very simple. I mean, the question is simple, that most of our smart cities today wasn't designed for monetization and sustainability. When I say the initial budgets will be over after the 5 years are over for that. After that, what next? How do you sustain these technologies and implement it, the monetization frameworks? What 2 points of feedback that you might want to give to companies or to the municipal commissioners or people from the cities who are on the call today to help them with monetization of these technologies over a long time? Because the benefit of some of these technologies is going to a different department, not getting plowed back into the smart cities projects. I mean, yes, we are all cutting chalan now, e-chalan, but that's going to a different department. It is not going to come back to smart cities. Well, I'm just giving you an example, but almost all of these technologies need an ROI.
Can I take the answer first?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. So, see, first we have to see that when we talk about the monetization, the direct benefits of the direct revenue earning opportunity and the indirect benefit you are getting through this, putting the smart city solutions. Let's take an example of smart car parking. Smart car parking already you have monetization model there. The people are paying for parking their vehicle. But at the same time, if you do a value add where you provide a premium location for the parking, or you charge extra for providing a extra video surveillance over your park specifically. So that may be additional monetization value for the smart parking. For city surveillance projects, you are creating a backbone infra where you have cameras, you have a pole also where your camera is hosted. The municipality can put up a Wi-Fi hotspot and provide the internet connectivity to the citizens through that and sell the as a service, internet service. That can be another monetization model. Third, that in smart metering or through like smart metering, today what is happening? One household is having one separate connection for smart energy meters, one for broadband connection, one for water connections. Separate bills are coming there. This is an opportunity. You can have a combined billing solution for all the three services. And as on a common platform, the local municipal bodies can provide this service, a single bill to the users and earn money through that. So these are some of the opportunities. Other than that, it reduces the cost of management and e-governance. It helps to reduce the pollution. These are indirect benefits the society get. The second, you charge the house tax. Now, cities which provide the better quality of service to the citizens, you can charge higher house tax, and indirectly you are recovering that cost for providing this smart city service.
Thank you so much. I think that's a very pertinent answer. George sir, over to you. Monetization frameworks for smart cities.
Yeah, I feel it's very important because to sustain, we must definitely have return on investment, and practically we'll have to think on each of the areas which is covered under the smart city. Like parking is one of the areas. Like the EV charging, we are talking about these days. Because of COVID, of course, the value of advertisements have gone down. But otherwise, the same place can have an advertisement, electronic board there, and it can definitely have the return on investment through that. So similar way, we like the media industry earns through the advertisement or through the messaging, the connect with the business, so that the city gets the return on investment on the space wherever it's allocated. Like Sanjeev ji talked about the smart poles. The same pole can be used for multiple purposes, and we can earn a return on investment of them. Of course, the transport and others, they already have the challan system by which it can have the return on investment. So I feel the smart city management, and as we PSU is providing solution, we'll have to look on all the innovative ways of earning revenue, because people don't mind giving small amount of money, but for an organization, for a city, it adds up to a big value which can sustain the technology and the facilities which are provided to them. So I believe we'll have to think, and we'll have to make it a sustainable way of going ahead. Otherwise, it's very difficult to maintain smart cities.
Deepak, any last point from you?
Thank you so much. So I would actually probably extend Sanjeev Kumar ji's idea and see. I mean, I think the other part that we can look at is how to provide premium services to corporates, right? So a lot of companies, for example, invest in extra security, extra backup generators. As smart cities get better at managing, providing, say, better intelligent security services, for example, as part of, providing that as a free service, or maybe better power provisions, right? So I think, yes, it's really going to be about providing premium services which people will be willing to pay for. I don't think it's going to sustain without that kind of a value add.
Thank you. Last point from Dr. Upadhyay, and if you have a point there.
I think a lot of it has been covered. I think I will come back to my initial point. If you are implementing a smart city for health, a smart city for application for connected home, for education, for traffic, for transport, all in isolation, there is no data sharing among these applications. So the data is not visible outside. Today, if I am an entrepreneur, if you give me access to all this data together, I can develop an app, and that app, I can develop not many applications for the citizens, and I can run that app using advertisements. But the problem currently with smart cities is the data is like the whole implementation like a black box. Once the municipal commissioner is transferred, I think there is nobody who is going to take it. My again point will be, whatever investment you make it on open standards, standard based, so that this data of one silo, another silo get merged, and people can derive more value out of this data. Throw open this data to the public, to the innovators. They will take this data. They will themselves come up with numerous applications.
That has already happened. The data, the common data thing is getting created. I know the initiative.
But it can only happen. It can only happen if if you are working on standards. One company is one way, another company another way, a third company, it cannot work. We are also working now, for example, most of the implementation is happening on IoT based systems. But there is a lot of data in the city which is non-IoT based, land records, so many things. So, for example, IST is working. IUDX is one of the platforms.
That's what I was talking about. IUDX is the initiative.
It's a great initiative. In fact, we are going to partner with them, because IUDX and IoT and non-IoT together. And the best thing I liked, I myself visited IST, I met Professor Indar Gopal. The best thing is their complete structure on the data is open. I know very well that this is how I have to plug my data. I don't have to really go after that vendor. Oh, kindly tell me how it is. What is the frame? It is all standard. He tells you, this is my data structure. If you want to onboard, you come. And it becomes very easy. If I turn out one application, tomorrow I can turn out another application.
Absolutely.
Data is useful only when some information can be extracted out of it. It can be extracted only when it is structured. It is structured and shareable among other different.
Yeah, I think in India here, I have been working and talking to a lot of people in the European community as well. And we are actually ahead of them in terms of this IUDX concept that we have created. We are bringing all the data together. It will take us another 2-3 years before it becomes mature enough for people to start building applications. But the fact that we have started the journey is good. It is one of the artifacts that has come out of the Smart Cities mission. As a country, we have just the closing remarks for everybody. As a country, we have taken a huge step to implement technologies which is going to make our lives better. I know, and I have a lot of friends who will laugh about the Smart Cities mission, kuch nahi ho raha hai, this and that, and all kinds of negative remarks. But I can tell you with confidence today that a lot has been done over the last 6-7 years. And I have been part of the journey, and I can see the incremental changes that each city has adopted. The cleanliness that has gone in, Swachh Bharat mission has been one of the greatest success stories of the government in terms of the awareness. If you go to Indore today, you will clearly see why people want to live in that city. It is amazing why they have been number one in the whole country. I have traveled to more than 40-50 cities over the last 2-3 years, and it is, I can clearly see the difference of the cities which have taken it to heart. People who have actually implemented with their soul, and the citizens belong to the city and they are contributing to the growth of the city. And this is what Smart Cities is all about. It is about the use of data. It is about creating an inclusive technology pool of resources that the cities can use to improve the quality of life of the citizens. So over to you, Shashi sir. thank you for the opportunity for everybody to give their points, and I'll hand it over to you for the rest of the session.
Thank you, Sumit. One thing is very clear, has been associated with these events and various PSUs. Monetization of smart city is very important. Without monetization, it's very difficult to continue with the smart cities. Every state have their own rules and regulations. Some of the PSUs have maximum on nomination, some of them don't have. So I think the government should look into that also. I request Kunal sir, if he's there, that PSUs should be looking. Some of the PSUs have handful of, and the smart cities get delayed. Some of the PSUs are struggling for the nomination. So we have very few PSUs, those who are working on smart cities, and it should be distributed equally with the help of state. Then it's a win-win situation for the state, for the center, for the PSUs, for everyone.
And capacity building.
Yeah, that's a capacity building. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Someone got 10 smart cities in a month. The other guy only got 3 smart cities, or 7 smart cities, 1. Dr. Saab is smiling on what I'm saying. So having said all that, we will discuss in a separate one-to-one when I'll meet you. Thank you very much, each one of you. I'd like to thank, special thanks to our chief guest, Kunal sir. I will reach out to you all the presentations next week. I'll come and meet you personally. Thank you, George Kurula sir. Thank you, Sanjeev ji. Thank you, Dr. Rajkumar Upadhyay. Next session, Sanjeev ji, I'll come and meet you next week, sir, whenever your time permits. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.